Hello and welcome to Wales Today. Our main stories tonight. 4 more counties face local lockdowns tomorrow night. The new rules mean more than 800,000 people across South East Wales will be living under tighter rules.
They've got to balance the economy against people's lives, and it's a fine balancing act, you know.
That's just the hard reality of it, really. It's harsh, but we just got to try and get through it as much as possible.
While the measures are now at a local level, the Health Minister says he'd be prepared to see the return of UK-wide restrictions.
I think it may be the case that we need to do that in a concerted way through the course of the autumn and the winter. The only way to determine that is for us to share information and to speak with each other.
From 6 p.m. tomorrow evening, the only people who will be able to enjoy these views in Porthcawl will be people from within the Bridgend County area. The leader of the council says there's been a sudden, rapid increase in the number of cases here just in the last few days.
Also tonight, this is what university used to look like as students start a very different, socially distanced term. There's concern about whether they'll follow the rules.
We are really scared that not only are they bringing possible infections from other parts of the country, which obviously is a reality, that when they're here, they may not be abiding by those rules.
And a long-awaited return to action for Wales's women after 6 months. It's a baptism of fire against the Norwegians. Good evening. Another 4 Welsh counties face local lockdowns from 6 o'clock tomorrow night to stop the spread of coronavirus. They're Newport, Merthyr Tydfil, Blaen y Gwent and Bridgend. Together with Caerphilly and Rhondda Cynon Taf, it means around 850,000 people will be living under tighter rules. While local restrictions are favoured here now, the Health Minister, Vaughan Gething, has indicated that UK-wide rules may need to be implemented in the coming months. Here's Teleri Glyn-Jones.
By tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, more than 850,000 people in South Wales will be under new coronavirus restrictions. Just 2 weeks after opening, Evelina's business in Merthyr Tydfil is facing more uncertainty.
I didn't get a chance, unfortunately, to start, trading till the 29th of August. That was the day when we have an opening day. We need to follow the restrictions and the government rules and everything, so I think we're all just hoping that, it won't be for long.
But for many here, today's news came as no surprise.
Obviously, with Rhondda Cynon Taf and Caerphilly going in, it was only a matter of time, really, that we were going to follow.
It's harsh, but we just got to try and get through it as much as possible.
Cases are on the rise across Wales, with 234 new positive tests reported by Public Health Wales today. The number of cases per 100,000 population across the whole of the country is 29.2 for the last 7 days. But looking at the counties which enter lockdown tomorrow, the rates are all higher. It's 102.8 in Merthyr Tydfil, 60.1 in Blaen y Gwent, 53 in Bridgend and 45.3 in Newport. It's also higher than the all-Wales figure in Rhondda Cynon Taf and Caerphilly, where restrictions are already in place. So what does this mean for the residents of these 4 counties?
The restrictions mean that people will not be allowed to enter or leave those areas without a reasonable excuse, such as travel for work or education. People will only be able to meet outdoors for the time being. People will not be able to meet members of an extended household indoors or to form an extended household for the time being.
Another new rule, licensed venues in counties where restrictions are in place will have to close at 11. The owner of Breeze nightclub in Newport is worried about the impact on his business at weekends.
During the week, it won't affect anything because we open till 10 p.m. anyway. But obviously on the weekend, we open till 2 a.m/3 a.m. So obviously it will have an effect.
Earlier this month, he closed his bar when a customer tested positive for COVID.
We were doing really well before that happened. We done the responsible thing, we felt, by informing our Facebook page. We had the deep clean, but yeah, there's always going to be that stigma, isn't there, that Breeze was a place that had a case.
Around the corner is La Pub.
For us as a pub to close at 11 is not good, because this venue runs until 1 a.m. It's a nightlife spot, so it is a late night spot rather than sort of early, you know, like pub lunch or something like that.
So how is the virus spreading? It seems the picture varies across South Wales. In Newport, for example, the cases started with a house party in August before spreading to pubs. In other places, a lack of social distancing, and again, pubs were behind the cases. Here in Merthyr Tydfil, the cases relate to two distinct clusters, a big employer and a pub. Tonight, the coronavirus alert level has risen to 4, meaning transmission in our communities is high or rising exponentially. After a call between the Welsh and UK governments this afternoon, both administrations say it's committed to working together where possible as they try to balance the need to protect lives and the economy.
Teleri Glyn Jones there. Well, let's head now to one of those affected areas, and our reporter Rhys Williams is on the seafront at Porthcawl for us. Rhys.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, there's quite a few people enjoying the sun here this evening in Porthcawl. As it happens, not so long ago, a coach with some tourists turned up at one of the hotels here along the front. And I spoke to a couple of the travellers on there who'd actually come all the way from Bolton. And they said that instead of staying the 4 nights they were going to, they'd been told it's been rearranged, and tomorrow they're going down to Tenby instead, due to the restrictions that are due to come in place. Now, I did check the restrictions in Bolton, and even though there are restrictions in place there, residents from Bolton are allowed to go on holiday outside of the area with people from their own household. But it's obviously already having effect, these restrictions. And I'm joined now by the leader of Bridgend Council, Hugh David. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. It's all happened quite suddenly in this area, hasn't it? There wasn't much concern about Bridgend, but you've seen a big uptick in cases.
The number of cases has rocketed in just a few days, more than doubled. And they're rising by the hour, and that's why the action has been taken today by Welsh Government.
Do you know why that's happened?
No, and that's one of our concerns, and we're seeing cases in every community across the county borough of Bridgend, in every town and every valley.
And of course, there's some concern about how this is going to affect different areas. In Porthcawl in particular, of course, this weekend coming, we're due to have the Elvis Festival. Are you concerned there could be people coming here anyway?
We are concerned, and that's why we need to be very clear to any Elvis fan in the UK that there is no Elvis Festival this weekend. It is not taking place, and indeed, if you try to come to Bridgend County Borough for the Elvis Festival, you will be breaking the law, and you will not be met by Elvis but by South Wales Police.
And of course, what's your message to people in the area now who are disappointed, upset perhaps that they're back to the restrictions we had just 6 months ago?
No one is as disappointed as I am. I'd say to people that if we abide by the restrictions, we abide by the regulations, then these restrictions can be lifted if we can contain the spread of the virus and if we see cases drop again.
You think that's likely if action is taken?
I think if people follow the restrictions, then we can see case numbers falling as we saw them fall at the start of the summer.
Thank you very much, Leader of the Council, Hugh David, for joining us this evening. Nick, there's some disappointment here locally among businesses about what's happened, but I think also an understanding that there needs to be action taken if the cases are rising. Back to you now.
Rhys, thanks very much. Well, these local restrictions come as the Prime Minister prepares to hold a COBRA meeting tomorrow on the rising cases across the UK. And in a rare move, Boris Johnson and the First Minister, Mark Drakeford, spoke over the phone this afternoon. Well, our political editor, Felicity Evans, joins us now. What was said?
Well, it wasn't just the two of them. It was a conversation between the Prime Minister and all the First Ministers of the devolved governments around the UK. The Prime Minister, we're told, emphasised his concern over the rising infection rates, and he reiterated his commitment to working with the devolved administrations to try to tackle it. And they all agreed that a united approach, as far as possible, would be the best way forward over the days and weeks ahead. And as you said, there will be a COBRA meeting tomorrow to which the First Ministers are invited. Now, you'll remember that on Friday, Mark Drakeford, the First Minister, complained about a lack of contact with the Prime Minister. He said the last phone call had been at the end of May. The UK government pushed back on that, saying, well, there are lots of contacts at other levels, officials and ministers and so on. But Mark Drakeford emphasising the need for contact with the Prime Minister, which he has had, and he's described the conversation as constructive. He's welcomed the COBRA meeting tomorrow and has said it's crucial that all 4 UK nations work together.
And Felicity, it's obviously a very fluid situation, this, isn't it? And there are talks tomorrow which could have a bearing on the announcements in Wales.
Yes, absolutely. Vaughan Gething, the Health Minister, will be meeting 10 local authorities from Bridgend right across to the border, including health boards and the police as well, because he says, given that 6 out of 10 of those local authorities will be under lockdown from tomorrow night, it makes sense to have a regional chat about this. And he said, depending on the data that comes over the next few days, there could even be some sort of regional restriction as opposed to local authority-based restriction imposed. But he said if that were to happen, it was unlikely to be the sort of lockdown restrictions that we saw in March. And of course, as we know, Nick, he's also not ruling out a Wales-wide restriction or some sort of lockdown in the weeks ahead. OK,
Felicity, thanks very much. These latest lockdowns could certainly have an effect on students either beginning or returning to university this week. A socially distanced start is not what many would have wanted, but they're being urged to follow the latest guidelines, with concerns growing among local people living in student areas about a potential spread of the virus. Here's Ben Price.
The typical hustle and bustle of Freshers' Fair, one of the main events during the first week of university term. A chance to join societies and sports clubs. But COVID-19 has brought about a very different experience. This year, students will have to do it online, and they'll have to form household bubbles with strangers.
Our advice to students would always be follow the Welsh Government guidance. That is the bottom line. I think there's also, obviously, we know that the guidance is changing quite frequently, as we've seen even today. So it's making sure that universities and governments do communicate those changes to students, again, recognising that we've got students that might be travelling from across the border or even from across the globe where restrictions will be different.
Socialising in pubs and clubs is for many a big part of students' life, but this year a number of Freshers' Week events won't be going ahead. Tickets have been selling online for a UV neon rave at this nightclub in Cardiff and another in Swansea, but now the organisers have told me it's been postponed until later in the year as they continue to monitor government guidance. There are growing concerns that an influx of young people from across the UK could risk further increases in COVID-19 cases in local communities. In Aberystwyth, a few pubs have temporarily closed. Posting online, this action has been taken due to the increase in cases and the return of students.
There were 40 young people gathered in a junction of a street, partying, cans.
Ali Morris has lived in the Bryn Mill area of Swansea for more than 20 years. It has a large student population, and Ali says in recent days she's witnessed house parties with a disregard for the rules.
We have rules and laws now in this country that govern us around this situation, and we are really scared that not only are they bringing possible infections from other parts of the country, which obviously is a reality, that when they're here, they may not be abiding by those rules.
Swansea University says it's investigating and will take appropriate action if any of its students were involved.
Part of the university experience is the social aspect as much as the academic aspect. But I think the university are trying to reduce the amount of unnecessary house parties with some of the things they're doing in terms of socially distanced like events and stuff like that.
We've got people on site that are reaching out to the community, so people who live here all year round, residents, and saying that we are here to listen, we are going to try our best to sort of control what students are doing and sort of giving them a nudge and saying you shouldn't really be doing this, sort of think of the impact it's going to have on the wider community, not just you.
With COVID-19 cases on the rise and more local lockdowns for the class of 2020, there are some challenging months ahead.
An investigation has been ordered into the death of a 3-year-old boy who appeared malnourished. Taiwo Abu Bakar was found dead at his home in Cardiff in June. The coroner was told further investigations were needed. No date has been set for an inquest. 1 in 5 children were absent in the first week schools reopened full-time for all pupils, according to new figures. About 85,000 students were absent on Monday last week. However, attendance gradually increased throughout the week. A Coast Guard helicopter and RNLI volunteers assisted in a rescue operation in Penarth yesterday after 2 people on board a yacht were in need of medical assistance. A paramedic on board the helicopter was winched down to the lifeboat and then transferred to the yacht, where the casualty was then flown to hospital. Lifeboat volunteers also assisted in the docking of the yacht, which was suffering engine difficulties. Still to come before 7. Wales star Nick Tompkins tells us his story of being struck down by meningitis as a child to warn others of the dangers of the disease.
And it's been another super September day, but the warm and sunny weather is on its last legs. I'll tell you more later in the programme.
The future of dementia research is at risk because of the coronavirus pandemic, according to the charity Alzheimer's Research UK. Fundraising has been impacted and social distancing means some studies with patients have had to stop. It's thought that only half of the 42,000 people living with dementia in Wales have been diagnosed. And carers have been marking World Alzheimer's Day with a plea for more support for patients and their loved ones. Here's Matthew Richards.
Dr Prydwen Elfed-Jones from Trefnant in Denbighshire began caring for her husband Tom when he was diagnosed with dementia 5 years ago. She says, like many people, she ignored the warning signs at first.
I tried to excuse all kinds of behaviour, aggression, which I'd never seen before, agitation, which I'd never seen before, and I tried to manage that behaviour, but I obviously was managing it not in a very good way.
Now Dr Elfed-Jones has published a book about the lessons she learned and the stories of a dozen other carers to shine a light on the impact of the UK's biggest killer on families. The contributors to this book are asking not to be forgotten as they care for loved ones with dementia. Scientists and researchers too are also hoping they aren't overlooked in the battle against the disease. Taken 2 years ago, these pictures show scientists at Cardiff University's Dementia Research Institute. Work like this has been affected by the coronavirus crisis and labs must now accommodate social distancing. Fundraising has also been hit.
With the impact of COVID and our supporters on the ground not being able to fundraise for us and seeing that the loss of 45% income, it's got a real big impact on the future, and it's probably going to take us a long time to be able to build that back up again.
But there is some good news. A donation of £76,000 will help one of Cardiff University's PhD students to continue working on research which could show whether altering a particular gene can affect the amount of protein which builds up in the brains of Alzheimer's patients.
I think it's really important that we are now looking deeper into the genes that are causing it, because even though a few years ago it was said that about 5% of dementia is actually genetic and we don't know where it's coming from, it has been shown by now that there's about 60 to 70% heritability in these diseases. So we're now thinking, okay, maybe genes have a lot more to say in these than just spontaneous cases.
Whether they're scientists at the cutting edge or relatives at the sharp end, everyone is hoping that the fight against one disease won't have any lasting impact on the battle against another.
Matthew Richards there. And while the public is focused on symptoms of COVID-19, there are fears that we could fail to spot the symptoms of another deadly disease which can kill within hours. Cases of bacterial meningitis usually rise at this time of the year. The Wales Centre, Nick Tompkins, who was struck down with it as a child, has shared his story for the first time to warn others of the dangers. Caroline Evans reports.
He plays for Wales, but for Nick Tompkins, life could have been very different. In 2002, when he was just 7, meningitis struck. The bacteria that causes the disease got into his bloodstream, leading to septicemia, and the doctors told his mother he would lose his feet and hands.
It was horrendous. They just literally pushed Dad, me and Alex out of the way, and you were on the bed and they ran with you into another room. I had to stay with you. Do you remember any of that?
I remember a little bit of the panic, and then that's when it kind of started to set in, I think, a little bit of panic for me. I remember you talking to me as well, and then after that it's all the treatments of all the needles in my hand, which I really didn't like at the time. I was really uncomfortable with, and it just kind of the panic, kind of looking at people's faces, and the fear and worry in your eyes.
Meningitis is spread through close contact, but difficult to spot. The first symptoms are usually fever, vomiting, headache, and feeling unwell. Limb pain, pale skin and cold hands and feet often precede a rash, neck stiffness, dislike of bright lights and confusion. Each year, colleges and universities are potential hotspots. Research funded by MRF found that by December in their first term, 34% of students living in catered halls of residence were carriers. The charity is also concerned that parents may be worried about taking a child to hospital because of COVID-19, but says meningitis leads to more serious illness in young children.
I think it's great that people are focused on COVID. You know, it's around, it's obviously something we need to be aware of. But people are so focused on that, we're worried that they're not thinking about the other infectious diseases that can also affect them. And particularly children and young adults. We know that meningitis is you know, quite prevalent in those populations. And we really want people to be aware of the signs and symptoms.
Nick was lucky, but the figures are stark. 1 in 10 who contract meningitis will die, and more than 1 in 5 have long-term effects from the disease, such as amputations or brain injuries. Parents should, say the charity, trust their instincts and seek medical help when they spot any signs of the illness.
Let's get some sport now, and Merthyr Town Football Club is to be mothballed until the start of next season because of the effects of the pandemic. Restrictions to travel has led the Southern League Premier Club to take the decision to suspend play until the 2021 campaign. Players have been told they are free to find other clubs. Gareth Bale could return quicker than expected from injury because his motivation is high, according to his manager, Jose Mourinho. The Wales forward, who rejoined Tottenham Hotspur on loan last week, has a knee problem sustained on Wales duty. Tottenham said they expect Bale to be fit after October's international break. Wales's women footballers are in Norway for their first match in 6 months. Captain Sophie Ingle is expected to win her 100th cap, becoming just the 3rd Wales player to reach that milestone. Manager Jane Ludlow believes her players are capable of getting a result against the group leaders in Oslo tomorrow afternoon. Here's Thomas David.
Back together for the first time in months. Sophie Ingle says the match, in which she'll reach 100 caps, will be surreal. 11 years after her debut, the Chelsea player joins an exclusive club. Only teammates Jess Fishlock and Lauren Dykes have reached the milestone.
You just don't realise that you have that many caps under your belt. I think obviously you're just focused on each game as it comes, and you know, I'm on 99 already, which is incredible really. But yeah, obviously I just want to play the game like I always do and be focused on trying to get a result out in Norway. But obviously for my friends and family, it means a lot to them as well.
Beating Russia and holding England to a draw, some of the memorable moments in the last qualifying campaign, which ultimately ended in disappointment. But the manager says it shows her squad relish playing in the big games.
They are big competitions for us, but ones we always throw everything at, and we turn up and we compete. And this will be no different. We respect fully the talent that the Norwegian team have on the pitch and on the bench, but we obviously back our own ability.
Teenager Carrie Jones made her debut for Wales last year. At just 15, she wasn't old enough to sign for a club. A year on, she now plays at one of the biggest names in world football. Signing for Manchester United came after an eventful few months. She missed a Wales match in March to revise for her GCSEs, exams which were cancelled in the end.
It was quite tough, knowing that I had to miss camp, obviously, with my GCSEs, but in the end, the GCSEs got cancelled, which is even more frustrating, but I think everyone understood why they got cancelled. Obviously, health is the most important thing, but now, obviously, I'm with United under 21s, and I honestly can't believe how fast it's all happens.
The goal for Carrie and her teammates: make it to a major tournament. The Euros, originally planned for next summer, now delayed until the following year. Worth the wait if Wales qualify.
And it's a wonderful finish. Oh, that was a vital touch.
And good luck to them tomorrow in Norway. Right, Derek is here. How long is this fabulous weather going to last for?
Not for much longer, Nick, I'm afraid. Beautiful in Fairborn in Gwynedd today with a clear blue sky, as you can see here. But today is the last day of the warm and sunny weather for a while. It's going to turn much cooler later this week. As you can see, a big drop in temperature, some rain and stronger winds as well. The reason for that change is our old friend, the jet stream. It's north of the UK at the moment, but a dip or trough in the jet stream over the Atlantic is heading our way, and that means our weather is going to turn much more unsettled, and colder air will reach us as well from the Arctic. A bit of a shock to the system. But back to this evening, and it's a fine and clear evening. Overnight it will stay dry, a few patches of cloud, 1 or 2 mist and fog patches forming as well. The lowest temperature 10 to 13 Celsius. Now, tomorrow marks the autumn equinox and a change in our weather. Low pressure near the northwest of Scotland, with a cold front heading our way. So tomorrow, a few mist and fog patches will lift in the morning, dry with some sunshine, but cloud will increase during the day. That cloud growing thick enough in the afternoon to produce a few spots of light rain and drizzle. Breezier than today, wind in the northwest, and temperatures lower than today as well, 17 to 21 Celsius. Dry for a time tomorrow evening, but a band of heavier rain will spread across the country after midnight, and it will be another mild night. On Wednesday, a wet start for most of the country, but the rain will gradually clear, turning drier and brighter during the day with 1 or 2 showers, and feeling noticeably cooler with lower temperatures. Then on Thursday, low pressure will move towards Wales, bringing more rain together with stronger winds. Cool and breezy on Thursday, with rain clearing to sunny intervals and heavy showers, strong winds in the south and west. Friday, dry and brighter and feeling chilly with a north wind. So the warm and sunny weather is on its last legs. Autumn around the corner, Nick.
OK, Derek, thanks very much. Right, before we go, let's get one last word on the latest coronavirus restrictions with our political editor, Felicity Evans. So, Fliss, plenty of change again tomorrow.
That's right, Nick. By tomorrow night, around a quarter of the population of Wales are going to be under additional lockdown restrictions, and that figure could well increase in the days and weeks to come. So if I may remind you of something that the First Minister referred to last Friday, the Swansea University modelling report, a deliberately pessimistic report, we're told, that said that at peak, 2,000 weekly admissions to hospital could start occurring around about Christmas Day. That report said 2 things could stop that happening. One was extra caution by the public, the things that we're all getting lectured about by the politicians at the moment, observing the rules very, very conscientiously. The second thing the report talked about was extra and effective testing. You know, it's the responsibility of all of the governments of the United Kingdom to provide an efficient and robust testing system, and the reports that we've seen recently would suggest that over the last few weeks we haven't had that.
OK, Felicity, thank you very much indeed. And that is Wales Today. I'll be back after the 10 o'clock news later. Until then, have a good evening.